Today we've got DJ T, special guest. We've got Paul Ashmore from Audio Animals, and you got myself, DJ Envy. We've been on a break over the summer. This is now the third season of the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit notification bell, and give us a follow. Over to you, T.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. You all right, Paul?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, mate. We get off to a very professional start, as you can see. We've known Paul, Envy and myself have known Paul for 15 years now. Let's move on from that volume.
I actually worked out as 18.
Oh, crikey.
18,
you probably know Envy a few years before me. Yeah.
18 years.
18, because I'm 36 now, and I was 18 at the time.
So that's as old as my oldest boy. So my boy would have been a baby. He would have been a baby.
Yeah.
As you can see, we all know each other. But for those who do not know, Paul, please take some time and going through your background.
Yes, and me, I work in a Dolby Atmos studio now. I've got this lovely studio behind me. I predominantly work as a mixing and mastering engineer. I run a company called Audio Animals. We're on currently 10 years of business this October, which is quite something for us. 10 years is a good amount of time. And it's good because I can't honestly say a day where we've had a break in the sense of we haven't ever come into work and gone, we got no work today, let's just go home. We've always had something to do for the past 10 years, which is a blessing at the end of the day. And so I work as a mixing and mastering engineer. This is my studio. We had quite an adventure from when we first all met. 18 years has gone by.
So let's delve into your little history. So you're mixing and then mixing engineer now, and I'm basically an audio freak. Let's leave it as that. But that wasn't your first love. How did you get into music? And we had a bit of a conversation when we were speaking to you the other day about how you got into the music business. So how did I get into it? I'll tell you a story about how I actually got into the whole music production thing. I was listening to an old garage CD, and off the top of my head, it was a Pure Silk. It was like a New Dimensions one.
I remember them. Yeah, I remember them.
And I was 14. I had like little computer room where I had my Atari and I had my Nintendo. Right?
That dates you.
Station 1 in there as well. It was a proper little computer room. I loved it. I was about 14, and I was sitting in there and I was listening to that song, and I remember it got to track 5 and I was listening to it and I loved the song, and I thought, do you know what? This is such a simple song. I bet you I could make this. Right? I got on my bike. I rode from my house to Electronics Boutique in Ilford. Do you remember that one? Down the bottom of the Exchange.
I know where the Exchange is, but I don't remember the.
Well, it's game now. It was Electronics Boutique back then. I went in there and I bought myself the PlayStation Music Creator. Do you remember that one?
That.
Correct.
Yep.
Oh, I'll tell you what it was. It was MTV Music Creator. And I rode my bike all the way home. I sat there for weeks making music on this PlayStation Music Creator. I loved it. And that is actually where it all started. That was the actual point that it started. From there, I got proper into DJing, because then I realised I couldn't actually make the music that all these other people were making. I went out and booked. I got well into me DJing, and then from there it was just a case of like, for me personally, anything that I put my mind to, I go full pelt at it, and that was record collecting. And I literally spent every single penny I had on records back then. Loved it.
You do, didn't you? Because vinyl weren't just about going and picking the tunes up, coming home and playing them. It was about building that collection and building memories, because every vinyl's got its own memory.
Do you know what it was for me? It was the fact that I could pick up a white label and only 10 other people would ever have that, or a test press or something.
Yeah, they're
And it
very
was that exclusivity of it.
yeah, they were valuable back then.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, in order to do that now, you have to do your own remixes. That's the
Basically,
equivalent, isn't it?
But the thing is, music is throwaway, though, isn't it? I mean, it's basically digital. It's not tangible. There's no cover notes. There's no artistry that's gone into. I mean, all the music comes out. How many people actually put an album and put artwork on it? And they don't, do they? You just make the track and put it out. And it's the fact that you can't choose 100 downloads in one go in an afternoon on a pool. You have to pick and choose your budget worth, and it's probably always goes a bit over budget anyway. The budget's worth of tracks to come home, and you go, do I have that one or that one? There's more.
But you say that, and Paul will agree. You were more picky, and you only got the tracks that you really wanted, even if it weren't a popular track. It's the tracks you really wanted.
Do you know what I say to people? The biggest compliment I can give them, if they say to me, "Do you like my song?" I say, "I'd buy that on vinyl."
Yeah,
that's the biggest compliment I can say to someone, because the only things I buy on vinyl are the proper songs that really move me.
I'll be honest though, you say to some people vinyl, and they just look at you like, "What's that?" Some of them just don't know about the whole era of it. You know, we've got some DJs on the station that have never touched a piece of vinyl.
No, I think every DJ should experience that, because it is the heritage of their art form as well. Yeah. And it's same as, like, for me in my industry, it's like people getting on a hands-on piece of analog equipment. It opens their mind to what's possible, and you're not just, because when you use like a plug-in, for instance, when you're mixing in the box and you're using a plug-in, you think about it totally different to if you're on a piece of hardware. You feel resistance when you're on a hardware. You can get really hands-on with something, whereas a plug-in, it's like if you was imagine using virtual DJ with a mouse and keyboard in comparison to with a controller.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's totally not the
same. Would you say, in terms of, okay, that's the tangibility of working with it, is the output very similar between digital and analog now within 2022? Because obviously things are certainly probably getting a bit closer.
Yeah, it's getting close. There is still a massive jump between, in terms of, let's just take from mastering perspective, the jump from digital mastering in comparison to analog mastering, it's analog mastering is so much better, and I know that, and I can hear that, and I know that because I do digital mastering in here, whereas next door Nick's got the analog mastering studio. He does analog mastering in there, and the difference between a master that's done in here and a master that's done in there is massive. And there's no difference in terms of knowledge and expertise. It is purely down to the equipment being used.
I mean, and a good example. Go on, sorry, Paul.
It's just certain things that you've got, like valves in the analog domain, that just warm a track in a way that you just cannot achieve when working in the box.
Does it lend itself? Just go on. Go on, carry on.
I've just got something.
No.
You know, I was saying earlier. You know, I was saying earlier about I got some vinyl bits from Ricky B, and we use Platinum Notes. I'm sure you've heard of it, Paul. Platinum Notes, yeah. So we put all our stuff through there. Now, when we put digital tracks through there, the expressions and the clips and everything will be into the thousands. Putting the vinyl bit through there was hardly any at all. And I don't know if that's because back when they made them vinyls, it was more analog, that you just get that better sound. But with the digital stuff, so you get thousands, don't you, of clips and issues with the music before it's gone through the software. But with the vinyl bits, we weren't getting that.
When I sit at home, I sit at home, I listen to vinyl. I never ever listen to digital. Or my kids obviously do. They get Spotify up and they're listening to Dua Lipa, all them sorts of stuff on the Amazon things, and it's playing all around the house and whatnot. But for me, I've got a little record deck where I've got hand selected my favorite tracks, and I've got maybe 20 of them, and I'll listen to those 20 tracks all the time, and I'll put them on to, but I will never listen to, I would never myself think to go onto Spotify and just go, oh, let's have a listen to that. But I'd listen to vinyl all day long.
Are you ever tempted to go, I need another deck, and there's a little mixer in the middle missing?
No, because my wife wouldn't allow it, because it's just sitting on the side in the.
It's not taking up much room.
No, it's one of these ones. You know, these little ones. It's like an old-fashioned looking one where you shut it down.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like a 1210 or something like that. But it all plays. There's a speaker inside it as well, so it doesn't have to hook up to anything.
So it's all self-sufficient.
Yeah. So it's just like literally, I've got a little kind of armchair next to it. It sits there. I'll sit back. I'll stick something on.
And your cap, your slippers, your
and he needs his little dog and the horn. Other brands are available. I think HMV is still just about working, isn't it? Yeah, there's not many of them left.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I do miss playing vinyl, just because you just get you do get a warmer sound, and it is just nicer.
Right. So let me ask you one thing quickly, right? The reason I love to work digitally when mixing, for like music, is for the simplicity of basically recalling a session is instant. Everything's instant. Yeah. Everything's kind of, I can have multiple, for instance, I'll have 10 of the same plugin. But if I was to do that in analog, I'd have to buy 10 of the same pieces of hardware, which a plugin, £100, piece of hardware, £4,000. So, you know, a plug-in, £100, you can.
Plus you don't have the room, mate. How many studios would you need?
Exactly, yeah. So in a studio like this where I'm doing mixing, it's so much more beneficial, and the pros outweigh the cons in terms of, yes, analog does sound better, but the difference is that, okay, analog sounds better, but I get instant recall. I can use as many of them as I want. I don't have to have hundreds of pieces of equipment like what we've got in there, so I can work digitally. And what I was going to ask you was, you know, from a DJ perspective, it must be so much easier to hold a USB stick and just go into a club, plug it in, do the link between the nexuses.
Yeah, I mean,
or, you know, we had a record bag and
a record. I remember playing in Enfield once, and I was doing a 4-hour set. I had like 5 bags of records, 5 bags, because if you're doing that much, even though you could, one bag would do it, you want to make sure. It was just a whole nightmare. And I didn't drive at the time, so I'm getting on buses and you know, and I've got these big bags of vinyl and these trolleys and all sorts. Now I can literally, I just take my laptop, my USB, and my hard drive, headphones, and that's it. And you're good to go, isn't you?
I got a question for you, Paul. So we're talking the difference between digital and analog, and I guess a lot of the music you're mixing is going to be sold on digitally. So it makes sense to do it digitally, because obviously every time there's a copy. Obviously, there's always some loss typically. But if you were going to do something that they said we're going to put this onto vinyl, would you do it in the other studio? Would you do it analog, knowing that it's going to go onto vinyl?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to. When it comes to, I personally myself, I always love to go at some point in the chain, hit analog, go into analog. And the best place for me personally, and what I would always say, the best place to do it is in the mastering, because it's just turning those ones and zeros into an analog waveform and really getting that great warm, you know, it's such a cliche thing to say, but it is a warm sound that you get from the analog world. You can mix in the box, mix in digital, and then when it goes to mastering, then hit the analog domain, and that's where you get that big warm glow in your track. Okay,
and I've got a question for you. So, I do a little bit of production to myself.
Badly.
Oh, yeah, better than yours.
I I've never said I can. I've always said I'm rubbish at it.
No, he's good at shouting at me. Do this, do that, do the other. That's not good enough. Anyway,
Yeah, I can give directions. That's about it.
I could do a few edits and remixes, basic ones. That's it. You've got. I've forgotten now what I was going to say. No, what was I talking about? You were talking about the analog mastering. Carry on. I've totally forgotten it. There's a question I had for Paul, and I thought, oh, that's a good question.
It sounds like an important question.
It was.
Yeah, it must have been at the top of your priority list, Steve. You know?
No, it will come back to me.
Okay, would you not, if you could, and it was available to you, would you not rather do everything in analog, or do you like the fact that you got the digital software to do everything you need quickly, and then just use the analog mastering?
So, no, because the problem you've got with analog is, in an ideal world, nobody would want a revision. Now, imagine with analog, right? Every single piece of equipment needs to be set up exactly as it was.
Yeah.
Now, let's say I'm working with 5 people a day doing mixes for different people, jumping from track to track to track. Where I'm working digital, I can just jump from one track to the other. It instantly recalls. If I was working, and I've been in this situation where I've had a big console, and it takes half hour to set up a desk. And if you've got to do an edit that takes 5 minutes to do, but you've got to spend 30 minutes setting up a desk, for instance, I have to charge the client for the setup time. So that all gets
time in it.
That all gets factored in to the cost of the service. And if I've got to spend, imagine if I had to do 4 edits every single time, 30 minutes, that's 2 hours worth of setup time to just make these edits. The only reason that I moved from my analog SSL console to a digital console, to this Avid S4, is because of Dolby Atmos. With Dolby Atmos is you're working in multiple channels. So it's not just a case of stereo being 2. You're working in like, for instance, in here I've got 15 speakers. So it's multiple channels. I would have to have multiple pieces of equipment to make use of the same piece of equipment, to make use of it in here. It just makes so much more sense to work in a kind of digital environment for mixing in Dolby Atmos over analog.
Remember the question. So can I say my question? Right.
No.
So obviously we don't know who watches these podcasts, but we know some of the DJs that would like to get into production. I got a fundamental question for you. What is the difference between mixing and mastering?
What is the difference between mixing and mastering? It's a question I'm often asked, and it's, for me, where I'm just like, well, they're totally different. But from someone at the beginning of their journey in production, it might not be so obvious. So the difference between mixing and mastering. Mastering, think of mastering, totally separate to mixing. It's the final stage. So mastering is all about getting the finished mix, and then, so it's nothing to do with mixing. It gets the finished mix and it optimizes that mix ready for release. So we get the volume loud enough, we get the width right, we correct any errors, we ensure that the low end is in mono, we ensure the playback is correct in mono, all things like that. Optimize it ready for release. Mixing, on the other hand, is everything before the master. So we're talking all the things about like getting each individual element of the track to the correct volumes that you want, add reverb, add delay, add EQ, compression, all these different factors, add all that in before mastering. Ultimately, you get the mix right and you get the song sounding how you want it to sound, and then you master it. Think of it like this. Think of it like a cake, right? You've got all your ingredients. You make your cake, and then your mastering is just putting all your sprinkles on the top, put your cherry on, done, ready.
don't talk cake to him because he'll be foaming at the mouth in a minute. You know what I mean? You can see he likes a cake. Look at his.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
In fairness, though, T, I didn't. I mean, I've been around music pretty much most of my life, but I don't know much about Paul's side of it. I don't. All I know, the most I know about it is, you do all your editing and then it's mastered because you mastered your finished bit. But all the bits that actually go on in between them stages with your compressions and with reverbs, everything you said, I wouldn't know how to do that. Well, I wouldn't know where to start.
If you're thinking it from some art perspectives, I mean, if I'm doing a remix or a re-edit, say a track, basically, I want to extend the beginning or just change some of the elements around. Obviously, nowadays, you're lucky to get some stems. Sometimes you get the stems, which gives you the individual elements. And if you're lucky to do that, then you can make your own mix. And then you'd play that out. And then you would test the waters with it in the real world, and the dance for the go. They like that version over that version. But that then, if you put that over big sound systems and everything, it's just not quite polished enough. And that's where you go for your mastering to therefore say, well, this is, and then even in the mix can then change again, but fundamentally you kind of dialed it in a bit.
A great way to get your head around what mastering is. Have you ever made a production yourself and then compared it to someone else's production?
Sounds horrible. It sounds flat.
It never sounds the same, does it? We done a remix of Dangerous and Becky Hill, and it was a rush job. I mean, normally we wouldn't have used it, but it was just to annoy someone. So, I mean, and the vocals, the a cappella I got, which I got from a record pool, was really a bit thin, wasn't it, T? It didn't have no warmth to it. It was very thin.
The thing is,
and that was from a record pool.
If I was going to do that for a release or to give it to Paul to then obviously to finalize, then I'd have layered the vocals a whole lot more. But literally just to get it out, we had to do it like about an hour and a half. Job done. It was played the following night. Once off to annoy somebody, just because I had those vocals on it. But it was not. It was rough and ready. I mean, obviously, Paul will tell you basically I know that Calvin Harris put 6 layers on for choruses and 4 and 2s for obviously the main part of the song. So to give you that more depth and warmth, and then you may just put ever so slightly, not literally layered on top of each other to give you more spatial awareness, so it sounds more. It gets complicated, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can do, and the beauty of it is working in Atmos is when you talk about layers of vocal, is when I layer vocals, I don't just layer vocals like from what you're doing, you're just layering on top of each other. Whereas I can layer vocals in here, for instance, I can have vocal up the front, then have a vocal here, then have it there, and then have one on top. So you get this kind of all around you stacked layers of vocals.
Like a surround sound type.
Yeah, basically, it is a surround sound. So there's multiple layers all around the room, above you, behind you, and it captures what is real to life.
Because that's what I was saying before. If you obviously get sort of plugins, it'll basically make the vocals, instead of being absolutely 100% layered, they're slightly off to give you that surround as the music hitting you from different
that
directions.
Will create a wider effect, kind of an off phase type thing.
But that's my limit. That's where I'm at my limit, mate. That's it.
I tell you what, if you ever come down this way, pop round to me, because it's quite a mind-blowing experience to actually hear music in this sort of environment.
It's a shame it's not in every nightclub, isn't it? Eh?
You know what I was about to say, when you go into and we've been into a few venues over the last couple of years, haven't we? And some of the sound systems have been
awful,
shocking, really, really bad. There's been too much bass, or the highs are piercing your eardrums, and and you just think whatever engineer installed this, he needs to be sacked, because some of the systems are really, really bad.
Some of them, the speakers are just not fit for purpose, and some of them are just go for loudness, just go for bass rumble, and it's and the atmospherics, echo, reverb. I remember when we were in Departure Bar, the reverb down there was so bad that one of the vinyl DJs, will remain nameless. We haven't seen him for many, many years. Somebody came upstairs and said, he doesn't know what to do. And all I just came down and just took a bit of mid out because it was vibrating so much. Yeah. It's like, come to see DJ T, I'll sort you out.
You know the difference. You know the difference. I know from when I used to go clubbing. When you went to somewhere like Fabric or Ministry of Sound, you knew when you were walking into proper good clubs with great systems, because they really, really did kind of like I used to go to like Valve sound system that Dillinger used to do, and it was unbelievable how good the sound system was. And I used to almost, as someone that was highly interested in sound over everything else, I used to almost go to the clubs and the nights that had certain sound systems, like you had the Function One systems and things like that. Now there's a lot more clubs with the Function One systems in. But yeah, Ministry of Sound now have Dolby Atmos, I believe. They've got a Dolby Atmos room. Is
that the main room?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I read somewhere recently that they've got one installed. So
because then that makes literally what you do replicable in the club, and you're making it for the club to get. Because anything is not that kind of thing. It's kind of a level of then dumbing down when they're going to hear it and just be played out, isn't it?
Yeah, as well as the thing is like I just said there with regards to like club promoters, it's a massive selling point when this Dolby Atmos thing really takes off, which it's already doing, but when it takes off into the club scene as well, it's a massive selling point for promoters because they can go, have you heard music in Dolby Atmos? And the majority of people go, well, I've heard it on Apple Music or whatever, but I've never actually heard it in real life because people don't get to come into studios like this.
I'll be honest though, a lot of people won't even know what it is.
No, but everybody does know what it is from the film industry. Everybody's aware of Dolby Atmos from the film.
Yeah. But if you said to someone, what is it? What is Dolby Atmos? They wouldn't be able to tell you. Because
basically, I'll tell you what the simplest way to explain it is everybody knows 5.1, right?
Yeah.
It's just a bigger format of 5.1, kind of. It's in this studio, I'm doing 9.1.4, which just means 5.1 is just your center speaker, your left, your right, and your back left and right. And then sub being your one. Whereas in here, I've got an extra 2 speakers on the back. I've got an extra 2 speakers on the left and right of me. And then I've got 4 speakers on the ceiling. So 5.1 can't go up on the ceiling, whereas Dolby Atmos can go up onto the ceiling. So when you've got things like helicopters going over your head, they actually go over your head. Whereas in 5.1, they just go round you at a low level.
So I take it a lot of the music, as well as music, the film industry use it as well.
Yeah. Pretty much every single film. Every film that I do, they always ask for the Dolby Atmos as well now. It's quite standard. I mean, they still have 5.1 because there's also still 5.1 is still a good format that people do still require. So people do still have 5.1 system. The other one thing to mention regarding Dolby Atmos is it's capable of folding down to different formats. So it can be created in Dolby Atmos and then still folded down into 5.1, so it can still play back as 5.1. That's what that's what makes it such a great format, because it can scale up and down. So if my room, I could mix something in this room on let's say 15 speakers and take it to a cinema which has, let's say, 100 speakers, and it will still translate perfectly. No matter, it will still fill in the speakers in between my speakers that the cinema has that I don't, for instance.
So in your business, do you do much cinema work?
Yeah, do loads. Yeah, lots and lots.
Can you name any?
I mean, we do the majority of the stuff we can name. I can't talk about some of the films that we're currently working on.
That makes sense,
yeah, but like we've done the trailer for Frozen 2. We've done music that's in Avengers Endgame. One of the trailers that was on Aladdin, X-Men, do loads of TV series. Yeah, there's loads. Like, there's quite a lot of big films. What other ones? Can't think of any at the moment. Yeah, Spider-Man, all the Marvel stuff, do all them. But yeah, it can be. It's not necessarily the whole of the film. It's like we will have done the music here and we've done the music there, and it's the audio that's in certain parts of the film or the trailer, for instance. But the films that we do work on as complete films, yeah, we've done one recently which was a war movie that was really cool. That one's now released, I think, so I can talk about that. I'm pretty sure that is released.
I bet you have to do a few
Just make sure.
confidentiality contracts.
That's it. Yeah, no, that has released, so I can. But then I just said, literally, I said a war movie. That could be any war movie.
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to be.
I mean,
that's quite impressive, mate. Well done.
I mean, from your point of view, it's not just about dance music anymore. Because where before you was all about dance music, weren't you? It was all about
garage and the D&B.
And I was just about to say drum and bass, but now you've gone from that to like, well, we can create something fantastic for trailers, for films, for TV, and you know you've gone down a complete different route to where you were when you started. I mean, you've the other massively.
The other day I was doing the Pakistan national anthem, turning that into Dolby Atmos. I mean, I can go from doing some rock music, some drum and bass, some garage, and then doing Pakistan national anthem.
Have you ever released anything yourself? Yeah, and if so, what was it? And if not, why not?
In terms of so here's the thing. I would have loved to have released my own stuff, but I never had the platform to release it and make money. I very much had to look at music always in a way of, and it's terrible to have to look at this, but I always have to look at it from a business perspective. I know that if I work doing mixing, I can earn X amount, and I know that's guaranteed. Whereas production, if I'm producing something for myself personally, and I loved writing music, but I never had the platform to get it to where I wanted, where I could make massive amounts of money out of it. But I have done a lot of production for people, ghostwriting, where I've produced their songs, took a fee for it. I still get some royalties through for a few of them. But that is ultimately because the money's there. And I have to look at everything from a business perspective of it has to be worthwhile in terms of being able to make money from it straight away. Whereas producing music for myself, that's a love thing, and just having love for something doesn't make you money. And I hate the fact that that's how it is. But that is how it is.
That was going to be my next question. If you've had, been commissioned to do remixes, but if you're doing ghost writing and ghost production, then obviously it's near enough the same thing anyway, isn't it? So, yeah.
Like, I'd love to be able to just sit down with a piano and just write music and write the music that I wanted to write. But the problem is the music that I want to write isn't necessarily going to sell. And you have to keep to this formula that is going to sell. And the people, like, I've got people that I work with, right? And I do their mixing, their mastering for them and whatnot, and they have to produce a certain type of song because that's the type of song that sells the most units, and they don't want to be producing that music, but they have to produce it because that's what the record label that they're signed to require. But they get to make money from it, which is great.
Yeah, but I think the sad thing with that is especially within the entertainment industry, I say the entertainment industry because I think that's more of a fair representation, is people always do what's going to sell and what's popular if they like it or not. because that's what's going to earn them their living at the end of the day, and that is the bottom line, isn't it?
When we're streaming, I stream the exact music that I want. It's exactly what I want. But even when I'm in the room and I'm playing what I want, I don't play exactly what I want because I'm looking at the room and go, yeah, they're not digging this one so much. I'll try that one. And I wouldn't play that one next, but I'm going to because it might work.
Though. We do have a DJ that plays exactly what he wants, don't we? One heavy, one light. One heavy, one light. You know, we have one of them DJs.
Right. All right, Paul. So beginning of the night, you know, as you know, in anything, in any music, and anything you do, you have, because you have an intro, you start gently and build up and finish typically on a bit of a crescendo, don't you? You know what I mean? You warm people in, no matter what you're doing in life. So no different for a gig. He starts off, second song in, Show Me Love. Beginning of the night.
No. Third. It was the third song in. About 14, 15 minutes in, he dropped "Show Me Love." This is bearing in mind. I Love You, Baby, or something like that, wasn't it?
Start with the bangers.
It started with all the old school bangers.
Where'd you go then?
And then he's hit "Show Me Love" at 8:15, and he only started 15 minutes ago. Where'd you go from that? You've got nowhere to go, have you? You've got no. You can only go down. You know, and I think, you know, all fair play to him. He's a bit of a plonker sometimes, but he's a nice bloke. Love him to bits.
I hope you don't watch this podcast.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's nothing I wouldn't say to his face, and it's nothing. Actually, I said exactly the same thing to him on Monday when I had my little festival thing. I said I brought that up actually because I thought that's an opportunity to embarrass him, innit? So I've done it. But yeah, I think, you know, the music industry itself on a whole is not as good now as it was when we was all back in the day when it was just vinyl. I think the way that music's put together now and everything, it's all watered down.
Well, let's be honest, you're getting old, Envy. Besides anything else, yeah, the world changes; it doesn't stay the same. I mean, look. You
know what's behind there, mate. You know what's behind there.
Club life is different. I mean, a lot of the clubs are really struggling. I mean, really struggling. There's a handful of clubs that basically do the business. Unless you're a headliner, most clubs, most weekends are struggling to make ends meet. They are. So and the difference is basically you've got bars are open sometimes later than the clubs. So that's all mixed about. You know what I mean? It's not a case of let's go to the pub, let's go to a pre-club bar and then go on to the club. It doesn't happen like that anymore. People don't pay, or they do pay very little to go into a club now. There's just not the money there. So we've changed track a little bit, but we still have our heart stuck in the day that, yeah, I mean, who would not want to be in front of 20,000 people or a massive club, yeah, playing your own track that you've made? And Paul's remixed it for us. Yeah. But you would. But you got to live in reality. It's like you might be playing that remix to 30 people and they dig it. So you can take what you can.
Yeah. It's a kind of thing where you can't, it's as much as well as you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And COVID kind of showed a lot of people that we had a really good period through COVID, where for us what happened was we had a choice of furloughing or carry on as we are and work through it. And we decided to work through it because we said at the end of the day, what business are we going to come back to if we furlough? Because as a service, if you aren't providing the service, your clients still need your service. They're just going to go somewhere else. So what we did was we carried on as we were, but we saw a little gap in the market there where we watched every other company that competes with us shut their doors and furlough because they either wanted to or they had to. It opened the floodgates for us to directly target every one of those companies' clients through Facebook and Instagram and different advertising portals. We were able to target those people, and we picked up so many clients because we were one of the only big studios that was open. And ultimately, it meant that all their clients had to get their mastering or their mixing done somewhere else. So what they did was they had to go and seek someone who was open and able to do it. and that was us. And we had a brilliant COVID time through COVID.
I mean, some people did, didn't they? Some people made,
Yeah,
some people made loads of money.
You know what?
Other people made nothing.
The,
It was a very mixed bag.
the richest in the world got richer.
Yes,
It's a proven fact that the richest still got richer even in the worst of times. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but that'll always be like that. No matter what happens, the rich will always get rich.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, there is that. You know, I'm not being cynical or anything, but Paul took an opportunity. If everyone else is closing and we're not, and they're still doing music, they have to go somewhere. Even if we're going to pick up a small percentage of it, we can still go pick up more work than what we had.
This is the thing: is now from a producer's perspective, right? You're furloughed, okay? So now you just have to sit at home. What do you do when you're sat at home? I'll get that album finished.
I mean, there was
taking up their personal projects and then coming to you.
So there was so many people finishing off albums. We were doing album after album after album just because people were finishing them through COVID. And it was the same email we was getting, and it read something along the lines of, I've managed to finish my album due to COVID, having the time to finish it. I've now finished it. Here's the album. And you know, our reward of COVID was this studio. We built this studio, and we've got another one we're building just down there.
Did you ever think you would get to the level where you are now when you first set out? Was it an ambitious? We might get there one day.
What? Yeah, I mean, I get this sort of comment all the time. Whenever I post videos on YouTube, I always get the same similar comments, and they're always comments of people saying to me, I wish one day I could have that, or you know, I've got no chance of having what you got. And I say to them, look, 10 years ago, I was you sitting there looking at other people's studios, going, I wish I could have that. And the only difference between me and you is that I went and got it. And if you go and get it, you can get it. It's out there for anyone to go and take.
I remember us having that conversation at end of the night at departure bar. He says, I'm about to set up my own business, music production, mixing and mastering, and then I've seen, not directly because obviously we haven't spoken, but we've been friends on Facebook. I've been still following you. I still see your journey from afar, and then you then all of a sudden you're making samples out and stuff like this, and you did all sorts of stuff and going like, sound nice one, So,
but these are all the things that you got to do. You can't just wake up one morning and go, I'm gonna create a mix and mastering company, and it's gonna be the best thing since sliced bread, because it ain't gonna happen overnight. And it's something that is a long slog. And we were working 18 hours a day. That's me and Nick working 18 hours a day, and that's not 18 hours a day just doing mixing and mastering. That's 18 hours a day doing all the extra stuff, doing the videos, doing content online, creating blog articles that at the end of the day get people into the website, which then convert them into clients, all things like that. It's not just a case of just going, I've got, I can do mixing, I can do this, I've got a great studio, but where is everybody? Why do you not want to work?
There's the famous film quote, build it and they will come. No,
they
don't.
I mean, it's the same for me too. We're trying to build this new mobile DJ thing, and we're putting in stupid amount of hours. I spent 3 weeks building the website, which takes time to get it right. Because even though you got, like with your business, even though you got the template there, the finishing touches take longer than the original template. And even now, we're still. And I'm sure you're still tweaking little bits and pieces.
Never finished.
No, you're never finished. And that's the thing, is you've got to change and adapt. The industry changes. It's like for us, right? Dolby Atmos last year wasn't a massive thing. It then became a massive thing because Apple Music basically said, right, we want Dolby Atmos files. We need those delivered. We prefer them over stereo. So then what that meant was that, right, from our perspective, we had to go, right, we need now a Dolby Atmos studio, and we need to be one of the first to be able to offer this service, so that we then become the pioneers as such of that industry, we get all the clients to start off with, and then everybody plays catch up with us. For instance, for us, because we put it in so early, and everybody else is playing catch up, we've already got all of the top pages of Google for all these different services because we were there at the start.
Yeah. Thing is, you got to innovate. You got to move forward. If not, you're moving backwards. I watch a lot of Formula One, yeah, and basically, it's like if you're not at the forefront, you're losing to your opposition. Yeah, all right, Envy. Yeah,
NASCAR, mate. NASCAR.
No, but it's true. You've got but it's, like you said before, you don't have to always be the pioneer. You just have to be the person that basically is your second, third on the ground. You know, you don't have to build Atmos. You just use it to its best of its ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Any industry, if you've got the people who go in first, they're almost the beta testers. They're testing the water, but then you go, right, okay, now's the time to get in. It's getting in at the right time. I feel like we got in the Atmos game at the right time. Yeah. So
I mean, was that down just to luck, or was it a bit of both?
I tell you what, it was a lot down to inside knowledge of people who we know. There's a company that who supply us all of our equipment called SX Pro. They supply us everything in this room, and they basically, the guy Dale who works in sales there, he basically came to me and said, look, Paul, Atmos is about to take off for this reason, and this reason. I was like, right, okay. So how much is this going to cost us? About 100,000. So that was like, okay, right. So if we're gonna pay that sort of money, you need to wow us on this. You need to really kind of sell us on this, and because we're not dropping that sort of money just kind of willy-nilly kind of thing. So we got taken to the PMC showroom, which is basically the speaker company that got these speakers. We went down there and viewed Atmos and viewed these speakers in an environment so we could hear what it was all about. And from that day, we went out and spec'd the room. We went for dinner after that meeting, spec'd the room, and ordered the whole studio the following day. It was just like, right, we have to do it. And it was within 2 months, we had the studio in, because it was just so groundbreaking. It was everything. I'll tell you what it was. It was everything that we'd ever dreamed of happened. Because you want, as an engineer, you're always trying to capture in a record what's real and true to life, and nothing does that better than Dolby Atmos.
You know what? I think that's the best way to finish this podcast. To be continued. To be continued. We've had Paul Ashmore from Audio Animals. I'm sure we'll have a part 2 very soon. Yeah, not that it's contrived and we're coming down to you in a couple of months' time. But anyway, let's leave it there. We'll have a view of the studio. We'll show you some more of the studio. Mr. Envy, DJ Envy, and myself, DJ AT. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you're listening on a podcast, whatever it is near to you, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, and we'll see and hear you soon.